All right, so welcome back again. The next thing we want to do now is to configure the VPN, which is the VPN configuration. But before we can able to do something like that, our network would have been going. We need to have a network before we can configure the VPN on it. So you must have a network before we can configure a VPN on it. So let's go ahead and set up a network. So we're going to come out with a router. So let's try to set up a network. So we come up with a 2 router. So we're going to bring out a switch. So we're going to bring out a switch. All right, so once we bring out a switch, we're going to bring out some system. So bring out some system. We'll bring out some system. I believe that you are able to do all this thing, right? I believe you are able to do all this thing I'm doing. So once you bring out a system, you need to join these guys together. So let's have a network. After that, you go ahead and implement VPN inside. So let's join them together. Let's join them together. All right, so the network we're going to be using from the router to router, we're going to be using 197.149.90.0. So that one means that the first router going to be 90.1 and the second network will be 90.2. So in the LAN, they're going to be using 192.168.4.0/24. And on the other second LAN, they will be using 192.168.5.0/24. Okay. So let's set it very well. So I'm going to take this guy like this. Take this guy like this. So this is the network they are using over here. And this is the network they are using over here. All right. So the next thing is to give the router IP. So I'm going to enter this router. So it goes to CLI. This guy asks you a question, I will type no. So I'm going to type enable conft, and the interface I'm using is a interface G0/0/0. I would say the IP address should be 197.149.90.1. Subnet mask 255.255.255.0. You're going to say no shutdown. To bring out the interface, the next thing is to assign IPs to this port. These people here, they are on a 4.0. It means that this guy will be 4.1. So I'm going to say interface G0/0/1. IP address should be 192.168.4.1 space 255.255.255.0. Just type no shut down, end and WR. So I trust you guys have done something like this before, so shouldn't be a new thing to you. 192.168.4.1. So here will be 4.1. Here will be 192.168.5.1. Okay, so let's go to the second router and do the same thing. So it goes to CLI, just type no, type enable conf t, and I'm going to say interface G0/0/0. IP address should be 197.149.90.2 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. I'm going to say no shutdown to bring up the port number. The next thing is to give this second port IP by saying interface G0/0/1. IP address will be 192.168.5.1 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. I'm going to say no shutdown. Okay, so once we give this guy IP, we give it 192.168.197.149.90.1. Here we'll give it 197.149.90.2. The inner interface connecting us to the LAN, we give it 192.168.4.1. The second inner interface connecting us to the LAN, we give it 192.168.5.1. So the next thing is now to assign IP address to the system on the LAN. So we can make use of DHCP. So let me go ahead and configure DHCP conf t. So I'm going to say IP DHCP pool. Let's just name it LAN. The network will be 192.168.4.0 with a subnet mask. It's 255.255.255.0. The next thing is the default router. Default router will going to be 192.168.4.1. So default router will be the any IP that we assign to this particular port. Next thing will be DNS server, will be 192.168.4.1. You can actually make use of a Google DNS server based on anything you want. So end and WR. So let's go ahead and put this system on DHCP. Maybe it's working or not. So requesting IP, we're going to see DHCP request successful. So we need to pull all the system on DHCP so that all the system going to request the IP one by one. So put the system on DHCP. So goes to the last system and put it on DHCP. All right, so let's go to the second network and configure DHCP on it. So I'm going to say exit. So here, IP DHCP pool, let's give it LAN. The network should be 192.168.5.0. That's the network they are using with a subnet mask 255.255.0. The next thing will be default router. Default router will be 192.168.5.1. The next thing will be DNS server. DNS server should be 192.168.5.1. So I'm going to do end and right. So let's check the IP. Maybe it's working. Put the system on a DHCP. Please, do you understand what I'm doing? Do you understand what I'm doing? Please let me know if you understand what I'm doing. So here now I'm configuring a DHCP so that they will be getting the IP address. Okay. All right. So once I configure the DHCP, all the DHCP is working successfully. The next thing, let's test the connection from one network and let's test the connection on another network. If I try to ping from this system to this system, you're going to see successful. If I ping from system here to this system, you're going to see successful. But the problem now is to ping from one network to another, you're going to be seeing fail. So if something like this happen, what are we going to configure so that they will be able to communicate? So I'm asking you a question now. What am I going to configure so that these two networks will be able to communicate from one location to another? What are we going to configure so that they will be able to communicate from one network to another network? What are we going to configure that these two networks will be able to communicate? This network can communicate in their location. These people can communicate in their own location. But if this location wants to communicate to the other location, what are we going to configure to make them to be able to communicate? So we need to configure routings to allow these different locations to get to communicate. So I will go for OSPF. So if I come to this router, I'm going to configure OSPF. So the next thing, just type router OSPF, and the autonomous system number I want to be using should be 100. The next thing is the router ID. Router ID 0.0.0.1. So the next thing will be the network that I'm using, which is a 192.168.4.0 with a wildcard mask of 0.0.0.255 area 0. We're going to take them in the same area. And the second network, which is the one we are using in the one, network of 197.149.90.90.0 0.0.0.255 area 0 end and WR. So we're good with that. So let's go to the second router as well. Let's do the same thing. So just type in router OSPF 100. You must use the same number. Router ID here will be 0.0.0.2. And the network we are using inside LAN 192.168.5.0 0.0.0.255 area 0. Do the same thing for the one network of 197.140.90.0.0.0.255 area 0 and WR. So with this, they should be able to communicate. So let's try to ping. Let's try to ping from system A to B failed. Let's ping again from here to here. We're going to see failed. So let's try to ping again from here to here. You're going to see successful. So this guy here, they are able to communicate right now. See successful. So the next thing we're going to do now is to configure VPN on them so that anything that is moving from this office going to this office is going to be encrypted. But that's going to be what we'll be doing in our next class. So we're going to be stopped here for today's class. So today's class, we are able to set up the network. In the next class, we're going to implement a VPN on it so that anything moving from office A to office B is going to be secure. So thank you for today. Before we put the end to this class, is there